Hello there, and welcome to Deep Sleep Seas. I'm so glad you found your way here. Maybe you've had a long day filled with the noise and rush of ordinary life, or maybe you're simply the kind of person who finds peace in drifting through the ocean's mysteries rather than counting endless sheep. Either way, tonight's journey is crafted just for you. You've got nothing to do but rest. Let your mind settle like snowflakes on still water. Your breathing slow to match the rhythm of distant waves, and your body grow light as if the cold currents themselves have lifted the weight from your shoulders. Because tonight we aren't simply exploring the ocean, we're venturing into the most remote waters on Earth, to the frozen edges of Antarctica, where ice meets sea in an endless dance of white and blue. Here in these frigid realms where few creatures dare to thrive, lives one of the ocean's most enigmatic hunters, a creature both graceful and fearsome, gentle and deadly, social and yet profoundly alone. We're going to spend our time with the leopard seal, that spotted phantom of the pack ice, the serpent of the Southern Ocean, the solitary spirit that haunts the frozen coast with a presence both magnetic and mysterious. But beneath its fearsome reputation lies a world of secrets, complex vocalizations that echo through icy waters for hours on end, hunting techniques refined over millions of years, a life lived almost entirely in solitude, save for the briefest encounters during breeding season. Physical adaptations that allow survival in one of Earth's harshest environments, and a role in the Antarctic ecosystem that scientists are only beginning to fully understand. You'll hear of spotted coats and permanent smiles, of songs sung underwater that resemble human nursery rhymes, of ambush techniques and filter feeding, of massive jaws and surprisingly gentle curiosity. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you, and some may simply wash over you like the gentle rocking of waves as you drift towards sleep. But before we begin, if you find these ocean stories relaxing, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next deep-sea journey into the mysteries of marine life. And if you're awake enough, let me know where in the world you're listening from. I read every one. Now let us descend into the cold, into the quiet, into the world of the leopard seal, where ice and ocean converge and solitude becomes a way of life. Let the Antarctic waters carry you gently into rest. In the realm where ocean meets ice, where the world turns white and blue and gray, there lives a predator unlike any other seal on Earth. The leopard seal moves through Antarctic waters with a grace that seems almost otherworldly, its body undulating through the currents not like the other seals with their rounded, compact forms, but like something older, something more primal. Watching a leopard seal swim is to witness motion refined across millennia, a serpentine flow that seems more reptilian than mammalian, as if the ancient seas themselves had breathed life into a form designed purely for hunting in the cold. Their bodies are long, impossibly sleek. Where other seals appear robust and barrel-shaped, the leopard seal stretches out like a ribbon of muscle and sinew encased in spotted skin. Adult females, the larger of the species, can reach lengths of nearly 4 meters, sometimes exceeding 11 feet from their blunt noses to the tips of their hind flippers. Males are slightly smaller, typically measuring around 3 meters, but no less impressive in their streamlined elegance. This elongation serves a purpose beyond mere aesthetics. Every centimeter of that length translates to power in the water, to speed, to the ability to accelerate with explosive force when prey appears. And the weight they carry is deceptive. A large female leopard seal can weigh up to 600 kilograms, over 1,300 pounds, yet she moves through water as if weightless. The secret lies in how this mass is distributed. Unlike terrestrial predators that must support their bulk against gravity, the leopard seal is suspended in its medium, buoyed by water denser than its own tissue, freed from the constraints that bind land dwellers. Every kilogram becomes not a burden but an advantage, adding momentum to each thrust of those powerful flippers, transforming the seal into a missile of flesh and bone that can chase down even the swiftest prey. The body shape itself tells a story of adaptation, broad across the shoulders where massive pectoral muscles attach to oversized front flippers, then tapering gradually toward the rear where smaller hind flippers provide steering and stability. This streamlining reduces drag, allows water to flow smoothly over every contour. When a leopard seal accelerates, water parts before it with minimal resistance, closing behind in a smooth wake that barely disturbs the surface. Scientists who have measured their swimming speeds report bursts of up to 40 kilometers per hour, 25 miles per hour, in waters near freezing. For comparison, most humans struggle to swim even 5 kilometers per hour, even in warm pools optimized for speed. But perhaps the most striking feature, the one that gives the leopard seal its name and its unforgettable appearance, is the coat. Dark gray or nearly black across the back, fading to silver along the sides, and brightening to white or cream on the belly. This counter-shading pattern serves the same purpose it does in countless marine predators. From below, looking up, the light belly blends with the bright surface of the ocean or the white underside of ice. From above, looking down, the dark back merges with the depths. The leopard seal becomes invisible from both angles, a ghost in the water, unseen until the moment it strikes. And then there are the spots, scattered across the throat, chest, and flanks in irregular patterns. These dark markings against lighter background create a dappled effect reminiscent of the great cats that stalk tropical forests and African savannas. Each seal's pattern is unique, as distinctive as a human fingerprint, allowing researchers to identify individuals from photographs. Why evolution painted these spots on an Antarctic predator remains partially mysterious. Perhaps they break up the seal's outline in dappled light filtering through broken ice. Perhaps they serve some social signaling function we don't yet understand. Or perhaps they are simply a beautiful accident, a pattern that arose and persisted because it did no harm and natural selection saw no reason to erase it. The head commands attention, large and disproportionate to the body, broader across the skull than one would expect from such a streamlined form. The leopard seal's head is both beautiful and unsettling. The eyes are dark and surprisingly expressive, positioned on the sides of the head for wide fields of vision, adapted to track fast-moving prey through the water column. The nostrils, located on top of the snout, conceal completely when diving, preventing water from entering the respiratory system even during the most violent pursuits. And the ears, well, there are no external ears to be seen. Like all true seals, the leopard seal belongs to the family Phasidae, the earless seals, possessing only small openings on either side of the head that lead to internal ear canals. Yet their hearing is acute, particularly underwater, where sound travels faster and farther than in air. But it is the mouth that truly defines the leopard seal's appearance. The corners are permanently curved upward, creating what appears to be a perpetual smile, a grin that seems welcoming and friendly until you see the teeth. This upward curve is simply the natural set of the jaw, a structural feature with no emotional content, yet it lends the animal an expression that humans can't help but interpret. Some people see a playful grin, others a menacing smirk, and still others something more neutral, a reminder that animals don't smile or frown in the ways we do, that their faces are simply tools shaped by function rather than feeling. When that mouth opens, the smile transforms into something altogether different. The gape is enormous, wider than seems possible for a head of that size, revealing an impressive array of teeth that tell the story of a predator with remarkably diverse dietary needs. The canines are the most obvious, sharp and prominent, measuring up to 2.5 centimeters in length, over an inch of pointed ivory designed for gripping struggling prey. But look closer at the molars and premolars, and you'll see something unusual. These teeth don't crush or slice like the teeth of most carnivores. Instead, they're tri-lobed, with 3 pointed cusps arranged in a way that allows them to interlock with the teeth opposite, creating a sieve, a filter that constrains small prey like krill from the water while allowing seawater to pass through. This dual-purpose dentition makes the leopard seal unique among mammalian predators. They can hunt and consume large, complex prey like penguins and other seals, using those fearsome canines to grab and hold while the strong jaws deliver bone-crushing force. Yet they can also switch feeding modes entirely, opening their mouths as they swim through swarms of krill, filtering thousands of tiny crustaceans from the ocean with the efficiency of a baleen whale. Few predators operate at such different scales, taking prey items that range from creatures smaller than a fingernail to animals that weigh 50 kilograms or more. This versatility may be one reason leopard seals have thrived in the variable and often harsh Antarctic environment, where flexibility often means the difference between feast and famine. The flippers deserve their own contemplation. The front flippers are remarkably large, disproportionately so compared to other seal species, sometimes measuring over a meter in length. These are not merely paddles but sophisticated control surfaces, capable of subtle adjustments in angle and curvature that allow for precise maneuvering in three-dimensional space. Watch a leopard seal hunt. and you'll see those flippers twist and bank, guiding the animal through complex pursuit patterns with the agility of a fighter jet. The bones within are modified versions of the same bones found in human hands and arms, the same skeletal architecture that allows us to type and write, adapted for a completely different purpose. The radius and ulna, the carpals and metacarpals, the phalanges forming what would be our fingers, all are there, encased in muscle and blubber and skin, forming a wing-like structure that propels the seal through water with grace and power. The hind flippers are smaller, but no less important, unlike sea lions and fur seals, which can rotate their hind flippers forward to walk on land. Leopard seals have permanently rearward-facing hind flippers that make terrestrial locomotion awkward at best. On ice or land, they must haul themselves forward by contracting their abdominal muscles and using their front flippers for purchase, an ungainly wriggling motion that looks exhausting and inefficient. But in the water, those same hind flippers become swept-back rudders, steering vanes that work in concert with subtle body movements to control direction with millimeter precision. Evolution traded terrestrial mobility for aquatic supremacy, and for a creature that spends most of its life in the ocean, this was clearly the right choice. Beneath the skin lies blubber, a thick layer of specialized fat that serves multiple crucial functions. In the cold waters of Antarctica, where temperatures hover around -2 degrees Celsius, just below the freezing point of seawater, insulation is not optional. The blubber layer, which can reach 9 centimeters thick in winter, prevents heat from radiating away from the body's core, maintaining the high internal temperature that mammalian metabolism demands. But blubber is more than insulation. It also serves as an energy reserve, a stored fuel source that can be metabolized during times when food is scarce or when the energetic demands of breeding make regular feeding impossible. And it contributes to buoyancy, helping the seal maintain neutral buoyancy at certain depths, reducing the energy cost of swimming by eliminating the need to constantly fight against either sinking or floating. The circulatory system contains its own remarkable adaptations. Like other marine mammals that dive to depth and hold their breath for extended periods, leopard seals have higher blood volumes relative to body size than terrestrial mammals. Their muscles contain elevated concentrations of myoglobin, a protein that binds oxygen and gives the tissues a dark red, almost purple color. This myoglobin serves as an oxygen reserve, releasing its payload during dives when breathing is impossible. When a leopard seal descends, its heart rate drops dramatically in a response called bradycardia, sometimes falling to less than 10 beats per minute from a resting rate of perhaps 80 or 90. Blood flow is redirected away from the periphery and toward vital organs, the brain and heart receiving priority, while muscles shift to anaerobic metabolism, burning energy without oxygen and accepting the buildup of lactic acid that will need to be cleared once the seal surfaces. Most dives are relatively shallow, typically ranging from 10 to 50 meters, but leopard seals are capable of much more when necessary. Scientists have recorded dives exceeding 300 meters, nearly 1,000 feet, with durations approaching half an hour. At these depths, pressure is immense, over 30 times atmospheric pressure at the surface, enough to compress the lungs until they nearly collapse. But this is not a problem for the leopard seal. Before diving, they exhale most of the air from their lungs, reducing buoyancy and minimizing the amount of nitrogen that can dissolve into the bloodstream under pressure. The lungs collapse predictably, forcing air into the reinforced bronchi and trachea, where gas exchange cannot occur, preventing nitrogen narcosis and decompression sickness. When they surface, the lungs reinflate smoothly, and the seal breathes deeply, recharging oxygen stores before the next descent. These are not just anatomical curiosities, but the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of evolution, solutions to the profound challenges of living as a warm-blooded air-breathing mammal in one of Earth's coldest and most demanding environments. Every feature, every adaptation, every physiological quirk serves the singular purpose of survival and reproduction in a realm that offers both abundance and hardship in equal measure. The leopard seal is not merely well adapted to Antarctic waters. It is in many ways a creature of the ice and cold, as much a part of that landscape as the ice itself, shaped by it, belonging to it, thriving nowhere else with quite the same success. And so they drift through those frigid waters, sleek shadows beneath the ice, predators perfected by time and pressure and the relentless logic of natural selection. Solitary for the most part, independent, asking nothing from others of their kind except during the brief and urgent imperative of breeding. They are the serpents of the Southern Ocean, the spotted ghosts, the smiling hunters of the pack ice, ancient in form, modern in their mastery, beautiful in the particular way that wild predators are beautiful when seen in their element, dangerous and magnificent and utterly, completely real. Solitude is not loneliness. This is perhaps one of the most important things to understand about leopard seals. While humans often equate solitary living with isolation, sadness, a lack of connection that diminishes quality of life, the leopard seal has evolved to thrive alone. For them, solitude is not a deprivation but an optimization, a strategy that reduces competition, eliminates social overhead, and allows each individual to operate as an independent unit, perfectly tuned to exploit the resources of its environment. Most leopard seals spend most of their lives without the company of their own kind. Unlike the gregarious fur seals that haul out in colonies thousands strong, unlike the elephant seals that gather in harems and fight spectacular battles for breeding rights, unlike even the relatively asocial Weddell seals that at least tolerate neighbors in close proximity, leopard seals actively avoid each other, except under specific circumstances. When two leopard seals encounter each other outside the breeding season, the interaction is typically brief and often agonistic. They may growl, display open-mouthed threats, even engage in brief chases or physical altercations before separating and going their separate ways. The message is clear: this territory, this hunting ground, this ice floe is occupied, and another's presence is not welcome. This territoriality makes sense when you consider the nature of their prey and the vast distances of their habitat. Leopard seals hunt relatively large prey items, animals that cannot sustain dense predator populations. A penguin colony might support several leopard seals nearby, but only several, not dozens or hundreds. Similarly, seal pups are seasonal and localized food sources, abundant for a brief period and then gone. If leopard seals gathered in groups, they would quickly deplete these resources, and competition would become fierce. By spreading out, by maintaining territories or at least maintaining sufficient spacing, they ensure that each individual has access to adequate food without the constant stress of competitive interactions. The psychology of solitude, if we can use such a term for a non-human animal, seems fundamentally different from human social mammals. Humans and many other primates, cetaceans and social carnivores, appear to have neurological rewards associated with social contact, oxytocin release, and other neurochemical responses that make togetherness feel good and isolation feel uncomfortable. Whether leopard seals have similar neurochemistry but simply higher thresholds for needing social contact, or whether they lack these reward systems entirely, we don't know. What we observe is that they don't seek out companionship the way social animals do. They don't appear distressed when alone, don't show obvious signs of stress or behavioral pathology that might indicate loneliness. They simply exist, independent agents moving through their world with apparent contentment in their solitary state. Watching a leopard seal rest on an ice floe is to witness a creature entirely at ease with itself. They haul out onto the ice to thermoregulate, to digest meals, to sleep without the need for active swimming, and to escape from orcas should the need arise. Once on the ice, they settle into characteristic poses, sometimes lying flat with flippers splayed, sometimes propped up on their front flippers in a position called bottling, where the head and chest are raised while the rest of the body remains flat. They may stay like this for hours, eyes half closed, utterly still except for the slow rhythm of breathing. There is no pacing, no signs of restlessness or agitation. They are not waiting for something or someone. They are simply being, existing in the moment with a stillness that seems almost meditative. Their daily routines, when we can observe them, revolve around individual needs rather than social schedules. When hungry, they hunt. When tired, they rest. When too cold or too warm, they adjust their behavior accordingly, perhaps hauling out or entering the water as needed. There are no group decisions to make, no social hierarchies to navigate, no complex negotiations over resources or status. The simplicity is almost enviable from a human perspective. Each seal is its own master, its own decision maker, its life uncomplicated by the demands and dramas that characterize social species. But solitude does not mean total isolation from other species. Leopard seals exist within an ecosystem, and they interact constantly with other Antarctic wildlife, primarily as predator to prey, but sometimes in more complex ways. They've been observed showing remarkable curiosity toward human divers, approaching closely, circling, sometimes bringing dead penguins as if offering food or attempting to communicate. These interactions suggest intelligence, behavioral flexibility, perhaps even something approaching playfulness, though we must be cautious about anthropomorphizing. The seal's intentions remain ultimately unknowable, its inner experience a mystery we can only guess at through careful observation of behavior. There are rare exceptions to the general rule of solitude. During the breeding season, males and females must come together, however briefly, to mate, and there are occasional observations of 2 or even 3 leopard seals in close proximity, particularly around abundant food sources like seal breeding colonies or large penguin rookeries. These aggregations seem to be driven purely by the concentration of prey rather than any desire for social contact. The seals tolerate each other's presence because the food is plentiful enough to make the social cost worthwhile, but they maintain distance, avoid direct contact, and the gatherings dissolve as soon as the food source diminishes. Some researchers have documented what appears to be cooperative hunting, instances where 2 leopard seals seem to work together to catch prey. In one case, 2 seals were observed hunting fur seal pups together, with one seal driving prey toward where the other waited in ambush. In another, 2 seals appeared to coordinate their movements when pursuing penguins, but these observations are exceedingly rare, and it's not entirely clear whether the seals are truly cooperating, working together intentionally toward a shared goal, or simply operating independently in ways that happen to complement each other. True cooperation requires communication, coordination, perhaps even some level of shared intentionality, and we simply don't have enough data to say whether leopard seals possess these capabilities. What we can say is that if cooperation occurs, it is so infrequent as to be nearly irrelevant to the species' overall ecology and social structure. The pups, of course, begin life with at least one social bond. The mother-pup relationship is intense but brief. For the first month of life, the pup remains almost constantly with its mother, nursing, learning, growing rapidly on the rich milk that contains up to 50% fat. During this period, the mother is attentive and protective, keeping the pup on the ice, defending it from potential threats, teaching it the basics of swimming and diving. But this bond is not eternal. After about a month, the pup is weaned, sometimes abruptly. The mother's hormones shift, her patience ends, and she may simply swim away, leaving the pup to fend for itself. For the young seal, now alone for the first time, this must be a profound transition. But somehow, through instinct and observation and trial and error, they manage. Most survive. They learn to hunt krill first, the easiest prey, the most abundant food source. Gradually, they develop the skills needed for more difficult prey, and eventually, they too become solitary adults, perpetuating the pattern. The reasons for this solitary lifestyle are likely multiple and reinforcing. Resource distribution favors spacing out rather than grouping. The Antarctic environment, while productive, is patchy and seasonal, with prey concentrations that move and change throughout the year. Predators that can cover large territories and exploit multiple food sources have advantages over those tied to specific locations. Additionally, there may be reduced parasite transmission when animals don't aggregate. Diseases and parasites spread more easily through populations that maintain close contact. By remaining solitary, leopard seals may reduce their exposure to pathogens, though this advantage must be weighed against the lack of social immunity effects that sometimes occur in group-living species. There is something almost philosophical about the leopard seal's solitude, something that speaks to different modes of existence, different ways of being successful as a living organism. Humans tend to valorize social connection, to view relationships and community as essential to well-being and meaning. And for humans, this is largely true. We evolved as social apes, our brains shaped by millions of years of group living, our survival dependent on cooperation and collective action. But the leopard seal reminds us that other strategies exist, that some creatures have found success not through togetherness but through independence, not through cooperation but through self-reliance. They are complete unto themselves, whole and functional and successful without needing others of their kind nearby. In their solitude, they are not diminished but perfected, adapted precisely to their niche, to their way of life, to their cold and unforgiving home. And so they move through the frozen waters alone, shadows beneath the ice, each one a universe unto itself, self-contained, independent, asking nothing from their own kind except the occasional encounter necessary to create the next generation. They are the solitary spirits of the frozen coast, content in their isolation, or at least indifferent to it, shaped by evolution to thrive without the social bonds that define so many other creatures. In their solitude, there is a kind of purity, a freedom from the complications and compromises that social living entails. They are in their way perfectly wild. To understand the leopard seal is to understand how it feeds, for hunting is perhaps the most important activity in its life, the behavior around which so much else revolves. They are apex predators, second only to the orca in the Antarctic food web, and their hunting strategies are as diverse as their prey, as sophisticated as their physical adaptations, as mysterious as the seals themselves. Let us begin with the most iconic hunting behavior, the one that appears most frequently in nature documentaries, and gives the leopard seal much of its fearsome reputation: the ambush of penguins at the ice edge. Picture the scene. A colony of Adelie penguins stands on the ice, thousands of birds clustered in noisy congregation, their black and white forms stark against the white backdrop. Periodically, groups of penguins approach the edge, hesitant, wary. They need to enter the water to feed, but they also know the danger that might lurk below. Penguins are not stupid. Evolution has taught them caution at the water's edge, taught them to look and listen and wait for others to go first. Below the surface, barely visible in the dim light, a leopard seal patrols. It swims slowly, deliberately, maintaining a position just beneath the ice edge, almost perfectly still in the water, except for subtle movements of its flippers that keep it hovering in place. Its spotted coat blends with the dappled light filtering through broken ice. Its dark eyes watch upward, tracking the movements of the penguins above. This is patient hunting, stalking from below, waiting for the inevitable moment when a penguin commits, when one bird finally overcomes its hesitation and makes the leap. And then it happens. A penguin launches itself from the ice, diving headfirst into the water in a balletic arc. For a brief moment, the bird is committed, in the air, unable to change course. The leopard seal explodes upward, powerful thrusts of its front flippers accelerating it from stillness to full speed in heartbeats. The pursuit is brief, often lasting only seconds. The seal's jaws close around the penguin's feet or body, and the penguin's fate is sealed. What happens next is brutal, but efficient. The seal cannot chew in the way terrestrial carnivores can. Its teeth are designed for gripping and straining, not for slicing flesh into manageable pieces. So instead, it uses a technique that researchers call degloving or thrashing. The seal surfaces with the captured penguin and begins to shake it violently, whipping the bird back and forth with powerful snaps of its head and neck. The bird impacts the water's surface again and again with tremendous force. The skin begins to tear, to separate from the underlying muscle and bone. Eventually, through repeated impacts and pulls, the skin peels away entirely, turned inside out like removing a sock. What remains is the skinless carcass, which the seal can then tear into smaller pieces through continued thrashing, breaking the bird apart at joints and weak points until the pieces are small enough to swallow whole. It is not gentle, it is not quick from the penguin's perspective, but it is effective, a solution to the problem of processing prey without the benefit of slicing teeth or hands to hold and manipulate food. Not all penguin hunts happen at the ice edge. Leopard seals will also pursue penguins in open water, chasing them through the submarine realm with speed and agility that the birds, despite their own impressive swimming abilities, cannot match over sustained distances. Penguins can burst to speeds of perhaps 15 kilometers per hour underwater, using their wings to essentially fly through the water. But leopard seals are faster, much faster, capable of sustained speeds that exceed the penguin's maximum and acceleration that can close gaps in moments. The pursuit might last seconds or minutes, the penguin twisting and banking, trying to outmaneuver the predator, the seal matching every move with its superior agility. Usually, the seal wins. Sometimes the penguin escapes, reaching the safety of ice or open air before the seal can close the final distance. But penguins represent only a portion of the leopard seal's diet, perhaps 10 to 20% depending on location and season. The majority of what they eat, at least by some studies, consists of much smaller prey. Antarctic krill. These tiny crustaceans resembling miniature shrimp swarm in vast clouds throughout the Southern Ocean, particularly during summer months when phytoplankton blooms fuel their populations. A single cloud might contain millions or billions of individuals, more biomass than a leopard seal could eat in a lifetime. And the seal exploits this abundance through filter feeding, swimming with mouth agape through the krill swarms, water flowing in through the front of the mouth and out through the sides, while those specially adapted tri-lobed teeth strain the krill from the current. This is hunting of an entirely different character. No ambush, no chase, no violent thrashing. Just steady swimming through clouds of tiny prey, harvesting calories with minimal energy expenditure. The krill themselves, each one smaller than a human thumb, provide remarkably rich nutrition. They're high in protein and fat, easy to digest, and their abundance means a seal can consume enormous quantities in a single feeding session. For young leopard seals, krill forms the bulk of their diet. They lack the size and skill to hunt larger prey effectively, so they focus on filter feeding, building strength and experience before graduating to more challenging hunting techniques. Fish comprise another significant portion of the diet, particularly species like Antarctic silverfish and lanternfish that school in large numbers. Catching fish requires yet another set of skills, different from either ambush hunting or filter feeding. Fish are fast, maneuverable, and their schools exhibit coordinated, evasive behaviors that make singling out individuals challenging. The seal must use speed and anticipation, predicting where a fish will move rather than simply reacting to where it is, closing off escape routes and herding prey into positions where capture becomes possible. Some leopard seals seem to specialize in fish hunting, perhaps preferring the reliability and year-round availability of fish to the seasonal nature of other prey sources. And then there is the hunting of other seals, the behavior that seems most shocking to human observers, most contrary to our sense of natural order. Leopard seals will prey on other seal species, particularly pups and juveniles. Craybeater seal pups, Weddell seal pups, fur seal pups, even young southern elephant seals, all appear in leopard seal diets. The technique varies depending on the prey species and location. At some fur seal colonies, leopard seals have been observed using an intertidal ambush strategy, positioning themselves in shallow water near the beach, where pups are learning to swim, waiting for a pup to venture too deep before striking. The capture is quick, the pup grabbed in powerful jaws and dragged into deeper water, where drowning is likely even before the seal begins the violent processing of its prey. Individual leopard seals seem to develop specialized hunting preferences. Long-term studies at certain locations have identified specific individuals that focus almost exclusively on seal pups, while others in the same area concentrate on penguins or fish. One or two seals might account for the majority of seal pup predation at a given colony, suggesting that this skill is learned rather than innate, developed through practice and experience and perhaps passed from mother to offspring during the brief period of maternal care. These specialist hunters return to the same locations year after year, timing their arrival to coincide with the pupping season of their preferred prey, demonstrating memory and planning that indicates considerable cognitive sophistication. The hunting success rate varies tremendously depending on prey type and conditions. When ambushing penguins at ice edges, success rates can be very high, perhaps exceeding 80% for experienced seals hunting at prime locations. The penguins must enter the water. They have no choice if they want to feed, and the seal simply waits for inevitable opportunity. But open water pursuits are less certain, with success rates perhaps closer to 50% or even lower depending on how the researcher defines a successful hunt versus a failed attempt. Hunting seal pups also shows high success for specialists, with documented success rates above 90% for certain individuals using the intertidal ambush technique. These hunting methods are not mutually exclusive, and most leopard seals employ multiple strategies depending on what prey is available, what season it is, and what conditions present the best opportunities. Flexibility is key to surviving in an environment as variable as Antarctica, where prey distributions shift with ice extent, ocean currents, and seasonal cycles. A seal that specialized too narrowly might find itself starving when its preferred prey becomes unavailable, while one that can switch between krill, fish, penguins, and seal pups as circumstances dictate can maintain adequate nutrition through varying conditions. The energy economics of hunting matter immensely. A leopard seal hunting krill expends relatively little energy but also gains relatively little per mouthful. The seal must feed for extended periods to acquire sufficient calories. Hunting penguins requires short, intense bursts of energy, followed by processing time, but a single penguin provides substantial nutrition, perhaps enough to sustain the seal for a day or more. Hunting seal pups demands both the energy of pursuit and the risk of injury. Pups can bite and slash with their own sharp teeth when desperate, but the caloric reward of a 50-kilogram seal pup is enormous, potentially enough to sustain the predator for days. The seal must calculate, in whatever way its nervous system performs such calculations, whether the potential reward justifies the energy investment and risk of any given hunting opportunity. We see glimpses of problem solving, of learning, of what might be called intelligence in these hunting behaviors. The seal that learns which ice edges are most productive for penguin ambushes and returns to them repeatedly. The seal that discovers the intertidal ambush technique and refines it over multiple hunting seasons. The seal that adjusts its strategy when prey becomes wary, trying new approaches, new timing, new locations. These are not simple stimulus response behaviors, but flexible, adaptive strategies that improve with experience. There is also an element that humans might call play, though we must be very careful about such interpretations. Leopard seals have been observed toying with prey, releasing and recapturing young seals multiple times before finally killing them, chasing penguins to shore and back into the water without immediately consuming them. Whether this represents genuine play, practice of hunting skills, or simply energy management strategies to exhaust prey before processing, we cannot say with certainty. From the outside, it can appear cruel, unnecessarily prolonged, but anthropomorphizing predator behavior is a mistake. The seal operates according to its evolved programming, strategies that maximize its survival and reproduction regardless of how they appear to human moral sensibilities. And there are the failed hunts we never see, the ones that don't make it into documentaries because they're less dramatic, the penguin that escapes at the last moment, the krill swarm that disperses before the seal can feed adequately, the seal pup that makes it back to its mother's protection before the predator can strike. Hunting is uncertain. Success is never guaranteed, and every leopard seal knows hunger, knows the frustration of failed attempts, knows the persistent pressure of needing to feed regularly to maintain its high metabolic rate in cold water. But successful or not, efficient or wasteful, gentle or brutal, the hunt defines the leopard seal. It is what they do, what they evolved to do, what gives them their place in the Antarctic ecosystem. They are predators, hunters, killers refined by millions of years of natural selection into forms superbly adapted to catching and consuming other living things. In that role, they are neither good nor evil, neither cruel nor kind. They are simply what they are, survivors, carnivores, necessary participants in the endless cycle of energy transfer that characterizes all ecosystems. And in their hunting, there is a savage beauty, a demonstration of life's fundamental imperative to persist, to feed, to continue, regardless of the cost to other living beings who happen to fall into the category of prey. In the darkest waters, where light barely penetrates, and the silence seems absolute, the leopard seals sing. This is one of the species' most fascinating and least understood behaviors, a layer of complexity that transforms our perception of these solitary predators into something more mysterious, more sophisticated, more deserving of wonder than simple anatomical descriptions or hunting observations could ever convey. The songs are primarily a male activity, though females also vocalize under certain circumstances, particularly during estrus. Males begin their singing in early December. As the Antarctic summer reaches its height and breeding season approaches, they will continue, day after day, sometimes for 13 hours at a stretch, descending beneath the ice and releasing their calls into the water, surfacing briefly to breathe, then descending again to resume their submarine concert. This goes on for weeks, sometimes months, an investment of time and energy that seems staggering when you consider the cold, the need to feed, the other demands on a seal's existence. Scientists have identified 5 distinct call types that leopard seals produce. These have been given descriptive names based on their acoustic characteristics: the high double trill, the medium single trill, the low descending trill, the low double trill, and the hoot with a low single trill. Each sound has specific frequency characteristics, duration patterns, and structural features that make it distinct from the others. When visualized on spectrograms, instruments that translate sound into visual representations showing frequency over time, each call type creates a unique signature, a fingerprint of acoustic energy. The high double trill sounds somewhat like a bird, a rapid oscillation of frequency that rises and falls twice in quick succession. It's bright, attention-grabbing, easily distinguished from background noise. The medium single trill is similar but simpler, a single frequency modulation rather than a double one, and pitched in the middle range of the seal's vocal repertoire. The low descending trills drop in frequency as they progress, starting higher and sliding downward like a mournful wail, and they exist at the bottom end of the frequency spectrum, sometimes below what humans can easily hear without electronic assistance. The low double trill combines the depth of the descending trill with the double modulation pattern of the high trill, creating a complex, almost musical phrase. And the hoot with low single trill is exactly what it sounds like, a clear hoot followed by a brief trill, a two-part vocalization that serves as a kind of signature or punctuation in the longer sequences. What makes leopard seal vocalizations truly remarkable is not the individual calls but how they're arranged. Each male creates his own unique sequence, his own song, by stringing these 5 basic call types together in particular orders and patterns. One seal might consistently sing high double trill, medium single trill, low double trill, pause, repeat. Another might use a completely different pattern. Low descending trill, hoot with low single trill, high double trill, medium single trill, pause, repeat. The arrangement is stereotyped for each individual, meaning they tend to use the same pattern repeatedly rather than randomly mixing up the call types. This consistency allows researchers and presumably other seals to identify individuals by their songs alone. Imagine a choir where every singer uses the same 5 notes but arranges them into different melodies, and each singer sticks to their particular melody throughout the entire performance. That's essentially what male leopard seals are doing. The acoustic alphabet is shared across the population, at least within a given region, but the words, the sentences, the songs they create with that alphabet are individual, distinctive, recognizable. Recent research using information theory, specifically a mathematical concept called entropy, has revealed that leopard seal songs have a level of predictability similar to human nursery rhymes. This might sound odd at first, comparing seal songs to children's verses, but the comparison is actually quite illuminating. Nursery rhymes are highly structured, with predictable patterns of rhythm and rhyme that make them easy to remember and recognize. They're more patterned than normal speech, but less complex than sophisticated music or literature. Leopard seal songs occupy a similar middle ground. They're not as random as, say, humpback whale songs, which show much more variability and improvisation. But they're also not as rigidly structured as some bird songs that consist of invariant sequences repeated without deviation. Leopard seal songs balance predictability and variability in ways that suggest both meaning and memorability. Why this matters becomes clearer when you consider the acoustic environment in which these songs are transmitted. The seals are widely dispersed across vast areas of pack ice and open water. Sound travels well underwater, much better than in air, covering kilometers rather than meters. But sound also degrades as it propagates, losing clarity and detail with distance. Highly stereotyped, predictable patterns are less likely to degrade beyond recognition than highly variable, complex patterns. By using a small set of call types arranged in memorable sequences, leopard seals create signals that can carry long distances while remaining identifiable despite acoustic degradation. The loudness of these calls is also worth noting. Measurements have recorded male leopard seals vocalizing at up to 177 decibels, referenced to 1 micropascal at 1 meter, the standard measurement for underwater sound. To put this in perspective, that's louder than a jet engine heard from close range in air, though direct comparisons between air and water sound levels are tricky because the two media have different acoustic properties. The point is that these are very loud calls, louder than necessary for local communication, suggesting they're intended to carry long distances and advertise the singer's presence and identity across kilometers of ocean. The physical act of singing is also remarkable. Male leopard seals hang upside down in the water while vocalizing, their backs arched, their chests inflated with air. They rock gently from side to side as they produce their calls, and their chest visibly pulses with each sound. The production of these vocalizations requires careful breath control. The seal descends with a full breath, begins calling, and must manage its oxygen supply to sustain the calling bout for 1 to 2 minutes before surfacing to breathe. This represents a physiological challenge. Calling uses energy and oxygen, creates metabolic demands that compete with the seal's diving capabilities and its need to forage. A seal that spends 13 hours a day singing is a seal that has reduced hunting time significantly, an enormous opportunity cost that must be offset by some significant benefit. What that benefit might be has been the subject of much scientific speculation. The most obvious hypothesis is mate attraction. Males sing primarily during the breeding season, and females presumably hear these songs and use them to evaluate potential mates. Perhaps louder songs indicate larger, healthier males. Perhaps more complex or longer calling bouts demonstrate stamina and breath-holding capacity. Perhaps the consistency of the pattern demonstrates neural function and genetic quality. These are all plausible and likely all partially true. Sexual selection, the process by which mate choice drives the evolution of traits that aren't directly related to survival, can create remarkable behaviors, from the peacock's tail to the bowerbird's elaborate constructions to the leopard seal's submarine concert. But there may also be a component of male-male competition. If males can hear each other's songs, which they almost certainly can given the acoustic range and the overlap of their ranges, then those songs might serve as advertisements not just to females but to other males. I am here, this is my territory. I am strong enough to sing for hours without stopping, approach at your own risk. By vocalizing so conspicuously, males might establish dominance hierarchies or at least mutual awareness without the need for direct physical confrontation, which could be costly and dangerous for both parties. Interestingly, researchers have found that calling rates are not constant across all males or across the breeding season. Larger males tend to maintain more consistent calling rates throughout the season, singing steadily day after day. Smaller males show more variability, sometimes matching the calling output of larger males early in the season, but then declining as the season progresses, taking more rest periods, producing shorter calling bouts. This pattern suggests that calling is indeed a costly signal, an honest indicator of quality that cannot be easily faked. A small or unhealthy male might manage to call loudly for a day or two, but maintaining that output for weeks is physiologically impossible if you lack the size, the blubber reserves, the stamina. Thus, females listening to these songs can potentially assess male quality accurately, choosing mates based on signal characteristics that genuinely reflect underlying fitness. The evolutionary origin of these vocalizations is lost to time, but we can speculate based on patterns seen in other mammals. Many mammals vocalize using calls for everything from alarm signals to mother-offspring communication to territorial advertisements. In aquatic and semi-aquatic species, sound becomes even more important because visibility is often limited and chemical signals diffuse quickly in water. Selection would favor any mutation that made vocalizations more distinctive, more recognizable, more effective at conveying information. Over time, simple calls could become more complex, more structured, more musical in their patterning. The process would be gradual, occurring over thousands of generations, shaped by the twin pressures of survival and reproduction. Geographic variation in calls has been documented, suggesting that different leopard seal populations might have slightly different acoustic cultures, different local dialects, if you will. Seals recorded in the Davis Sea produce songs that show subtle differences from those recorded near the Antarctic Peninsula or the Ross Sea. These differences are not random but consistent within regions, suggesting that young seals learn their vocalizations at least in part from listening to older seals nearby, a form of cultural transmission. This is speculative and requires more research to confirm, but if true, it would mean that leopard seal populations have culture, local traditions of how to sing that are passed down through generations, not through genetics but through learning. For the human listener, recordings of leopard seal songs are haunting and strange. They sound alien, unlike anything terrestrial animals produce, simultaneously mechanical and organic. The trills have an insect-like quality, the hoots are otherworldly, the low moans are almost cetacean in their depth and resonance. Listening to them, you are reminded that these animals live in a realm utterly different from our own, that their sensory world, their communication needs, their evolutionary pressures have created solutions we might never have imagined. The songs are beautiful in their strangeness, in their complexity, in the sheer commitment they represent, hours and hours of energy poured into sound, into signals sent out into cold water, hoping for some response, some acknowledgement, some connection, however brief, before returning to solitude. And in those songs, in that commitment, there is something almost poignant. These solitary hunters, these apex predators, that spend most of their lives alone, trying so hard to be heard, to be found, to connect with another of their kind for the brief and urgent purpose of reproduction. The songs are advertisements, yes, signals, yes, functional tools shaped by evolution, but they are also, in their way, expressions of need, of the fundamental drive that compels all living things to perpetuate their genetic lineage, to leave something of themselves in the future. The males sing, and somewhere in the distance, we hope, a female hears and responds, and the cycle continues for another generation. The leopard seal's world is a realm of ice and water, of extremes and absolutes, a place that would kill most mammals within hours, but which these animals have made their own. To understand the leopard seal fully, we must understand the Antarctic, that vast frozen continent, and the Southern Ocean that surrounds it, because the two are inseparable. The seal, a product of its environment as surely as the ice is a product of temperature and precipitation. Antarctica is the coldest, driest, windiest continent on Earth. Average temperatures on the interior plateau can plunge to -80 degrees Celsius in winter, cold enough to freeze carbon dioxide out of the air, cold enough to make steel brittle and shatter. But leopard seals don't live on the interior plateau. They live at the margins, where continent meets ocean, where ice meets water, in the relatively mild coastal regions where summer temperatures might actually climb above freezing and winter temperatures rarely drop below -40. Relatively mild is of course a matter of perspective. These are still conditions that would challenge any mammal without specialized adaptations. The pack ice is home. This term refers to the sea ice that forms each winter as the ocean surface freezes, then partially melts each summer, creating a dynamic, ever-changing landscape of ice flows, leads of open water, pressure ridges where ice sheets collide and buckle, and polyneas, areas of open water surrounded by ice that remain unfrozen due to upwelling currents or wind patterns. The pack ice is not solid like the ice sheets covering the continent itself. It drifts with currents and winds, breaks apart and reforms, creates channels and passages that open and close unpredictably. For a leopard seal, this is perfect habitat. The distribution of leopard seals follows the distribution of pack ice in a broad band circling Antarctica, roughly between 50 degrees south and 80 degrees south latitude. The highest densities occur in West Antarctica, particularly around the Antarctic Peninsula, where ocean currents bring nutrient-rich water to the surface and productivity is high. Prey is abundant here, penguins and seals and fish and krill, all drawn by the upwelling nutrients, and where prey is abundant, predators follow. But leopard seals also occur throughout the Ross Sea, the Weddell Sea, and the coastal waters all around the continent, anywhere pack ice forms and prey can be found. They are pagophilic seals, ice-loving seals, a term that indicates their dependence on ice as a platform for resting, birthing, and molting. Unlike some Antarctic seals that can haul out on land when ice is unavailable, leopard seals strongly prefer ice. When ice is unavailable, they will haul onto beaches or rocky shores, but they seem uncomfortable there, more wary, quicker to return to the water. Ice is home in a way that land is not. Ice is where they are safe from terrestrial predators, where they can rest fully and digest their meals without the vulnerability that comes with being on solid ground. The seasonal cycle of ice formation and melt creates a rhythm to leopard seal movements. In winter, when pack ice extent is at its maximum, spreading thousands of kilometers northward from the continent, leopard seals are dispersed across this vast icy realm, hunting where they can, resting on floes, largely invisible to human observation. As spring arrives and ice begins to melt, they move with the retreating ice edge, or some individuals move north ahead of the melting, appearing at subantarctic islands and occasionally even temperate coastlines thousands of kilometers from Antarctica. These vagrant seals, the ones that show up in Tasmania or New Zealand or southern Australia or South Africa or the southern coasts of South America, are mostly young animals, juveniles exploring beyond the normal range, perhaps driven by curiosity or hunger or simply by the restless energy of youth. Some stay in these temperate locations for months, even a year or more, living a very different life from their Antarctic counterparts, hunting different prey, experiencing different environmental conditions. Most eventually return south, drawn by the approach of breeding season or by instinct we don't fully understand. But a few remain permanently in these northerly locations, living out their lives far from the pack ice, demonstrating a behavioral plasticity that suggests leopard seals might be able to adapt to changing conditions if necessary. The farthest north a leopard seal has ever been confirmed was Rarotonga in the Cook Islands, nearly 21 degrees south latitude, in the tropics, an environment utterly alien to an Antarctic seal. How that individual ended up so far from home, whether it was sick or injured or simply an exceptional wanderer, we will never know. But its presence there, thousands of kilometers beyond the normal range, speaks to the species' swimming capabilities, and perhaps to the occasional occurrence of anomalous individual behaviors that push the boundaries of what we consider normal for a species. Despite these vagrant individuals, the vast majority of leopard seals remain in Antarctic and subantarctic waters year-round. They are adapted to the cold in ways that make warm water uncomfortable or even dangerous. Their thick blubber provides insulation that can cause overheating in warm conditions. Their metabolism is tuned to cold water, and exposure to warm water might create physiological stress. And their prey preferences are Antarctic species, animals that don't occur in temperate or tropical waters. A leopard seal in warm water is a fish out of water, so to speak, capable of surviving perhaps, but not thriving, not living the life evolution designed it for. The pack ice habitat provides more than just a resting platform. It's a hunting ground, a nursery, a refuge. The ice edges are where penguins enter and exit the water, making them ideal ambush locations. The underside of ice floes harbors vast communities of algae and tiny invertebrates, which in turn attract krill and fish, which in turn attract seals and penguins, creating concentrated food webs in relatively small areas. The complex three-dimensional structure of pack ice, with its leads and cracks and channels, provides cover for hunting, allows seals to approach prey unseen, creates choke points where prey can be intercepted. For pupping, female leopard seals seek stable ice, flows thick enough and large enough to support a mother and pup for the month-long nursing period without breaking up or melting away. They dig circular depressions in the snow on these flows, creating small shelters that provide some protection from wind and some concealment from predators. The pup grows rapidly on the mother's rich milk, doubling in size in just a few weeks, building the blubber layer and the strength it will need for an independent life. The relationship between leopard seals and their ice habitat is becoming increasingly relevant in the context of climate change. The Antarctic Peninsula, where leopard seal densities are highest, has experienced significant warming over the past 50 years. Sea ice extent in this region has decreased, the duration of ice cover has shortened, and the characteristics of the ice itself have changed, becoming thinner and more prone to breakup. These changes potentially affect leopard seals in multiple ways. Less ice means fewer haul-out platforms, potentially more competition for the stable flows needed for pupping. Changes in ice dynamics might affect the distributions of prey species that depend on ice for their own life cycles, particularly krill, whose larvae develop in association with the underside of pack ice. If krill populations decline or shift their distributions, the entire Antarctic food web feels the impact, and leopard seals, despite their dietary flexibility, would not be immune. However, it's worth noting that leopard seals are also generalists, capable of switching between prey types, and they have demonstrated ability to move and explore beyond their typical range. These characteristics might provide some resilience to environmental change. Unlike highly specialized species that depend on very specific conditions, generalists can sometimes adapt to changing circumstances, shifting their behaviors and distributions to track resources. Whether this flexibility will be sufficient to cope with the pace and magnitude of current environmental change remains an open question, one that will only be answered by long-term monitoring and continued research. The population size of leopard seals is uncertain, with estimates ranging from 35,000 to over 400,000 individuals depending on the survey and the methods used. The lower estimates are probably more reliable, suggesting a population in the tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands. This might sound like a healthy population, and indeed the species is currently classified as least concern by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. But we should remember that we have very limited historical data. We don't know whether current populations are stable, increasing or declining. We don't know what baseline population levels were before human industrial activity in the Southern Ocean, and we don't know how quickly the population could respond to rapid environmental changes if they occur. Protected under the Antarctic Treaty and the Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Seals, leopard seals face minimal direct human pressure. They are not hunted commercially, they are not targeted for their fur or oil, and the areas where they live are among the most remote and least accessible on Earth. The threats they face are almost entirely indirect: climate change, krill fisheries that compete for their food resources, potential disease transmission, and the unknown effects of increasing human presence in Antarctica through tourism and research activities. But for now, in this moment, they persist. They still haul out on ice floes that drift through Antarctic waters. They still hunt penguins at ice edges and filter feed on krill swarms. They still sing their songs beneath the pack ice each summer, advertising their presence and their fitness to potential mates. The Antarctic remains their home, the frozen coast their realm, and they remain its solitary spirits, shaped by this place, belonging to it, thriving in conditions that challenge life at its most fundamental level. In the pack ice, in the cold, in the isolation, they are exactly where they are supposed to be, perfectly adapted to a world at the end of the world. Beneath the apparent simplicity of the leopard seal's solitary existence lies the fundamental complexity of reproduction, the biological imperative that drives so much of what these animals do, the cycle that ensures the species continues despite the harshness of their environment and the independence of their lifestyle. Sexual maturity comes early for leopard seals compared to many marine mammals. Females can reach sexual maturity as young as 2 to 3 years old, though some don't mature until 6 or 7. Males mature slightly later, typically between 3 and 7 years. This variation is not random, but relates to body size and condition. In environments where food is abundant and young seals grow quickly, maturity comes earlier. Where food is scarce or competition intense, maturity is delayed until the individual has reached sufficient size to compete successfully for mates or to sustain the energetic costs of reproduction. The breeding season is brief, compressed into the height of the Antarctic summer when temperatures are warmest, ice is most stable, and food is most abundant. Mating occurs primarily in December and January, the southern hemisphere's midsummer, though courtship behaviors and vocalizations begin as early as November. The timing makes sense from an energetic perspective. A female about to give birth needs to be in good body condition, with ample blubber reserves to sustain her through the nursing period when feeding will be difficult or impossible. Pupping occurs in November, followed almost immediately by mating, so that the female is pregnant again by December or January. But the pregnancy itself is cleverly managed. Leopard seals, like many pinnipeds, employ a reproductive strategy called delayed implantation or embryonic diapause. After mating, the fertilized egg develops into a tiny cluster of cells called a blastocyst, which then enters a state of suspended animation, neither growing nor implanting into the uterine wall. It simply floats in the uterus, metabolically inactive, waiting. This delay can last 2 to 3 months. Then, triggered by changing hormone levels or photoperiod or some other environmental cue, the blastocyst suddenly activates, implants into the uterine wall, and normal pregnancy proceeds. The active gestation period is about 8 months, but the total time from mating to birth is closer to 11 months due to the delay. Why this complex timing? Because it allows synchronization of births with optimal environmental conditions, without requiring the metabolically expensive pregnancy to extend through the harsh winter. The female mates in summer. The embryo pauses through autumn and winter when food is scarce and conditions are difficult, then activates in spring when resources become available again, allowing the female to build up her body condition during pregnancy and ensuring that birth occurs in summer when conditions are best for pup survival. It's an elegant solution to the problem of reproductive timing in a highly seasonal environment. Birth itself is a private affair, rarely observed by humans. The female hauls out onto a stable ice floe, often the same general area used by other females, though leopard seals don't form dense colonies like some seal species. She digs a shallow depression in the snow, a small hollow that provides some shelter from wind and some concealment, though not much. The pup is born weighing about 30 kilograms, remarkably large for a newborn, already covered in thick fur, eyes open, ready to move and vocalize. The birth is probably relatively quick, and within hours the pup is nursing, suckling rich milk that contains up to 50% fat, more like cream than the milk of terrestrial mammals. The mother-pup bond during this period is intense. The female is attentive, protective, keeping the pup close, returning to it after brief foraging trips, defending it from any potential threats. Leopard seals have few natural predators, but orcas do sometimes take seals, and a pup alone on an ice floe would be vulnerable. The mother's vigilance reduces this risk, though it cannot eliminate it entirely. She also begins teaching the pup essential skills, bringing it into the water for short swimming lessons, showing it how to move, how to dive, how to navigate the submarine world it will need to master to survive. The nursing period lasts about a month, sometimes a bit less, sometimes slightly more. During this time, the pup grows explosively, doubling its birth weight or more, building the blubber layer and muscle mass it will need for independence. The mother's milk is incredibly calorie-dense, and the pup's metabolism is tuned for rapid growth, converting nutrition into tissue with remarkable efficiency. Meanwhile, the mother is losing weight, burning through her blubber reserves to produce milk, unable to feed adequately while caring for a pup that requires near constant attention. Weaning, when it comes, can be abrupt. The mother's hormones shift, her maternal behavior changes, and she simply leaves, swimming away from the pup and not returning. For the young seal, this must be a profound transition. One day you have a provider, a protector, a constant companion. The next day you are alone on an ice floe in one of the harshest environments on Earth, with no knowledge of how to feed yourself beyond instinct and whatever you manage to learn during brief swimming lessons. Most pups survive this transition, though mortality in the first year is significant, perhaps 25% or higher. The pups that survive do so by being cautious, by starting with easy prey like krill, by learning gradually through trial and error. They swim clumsily at first, their bodies still learning the coordinated movements that adult seals perform with such grace. They attempt to filter feed, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. They rest on ice when tired, dive when hungry, slowly building the skills and experience they'll need to thrive. Growth continues rapidly through the first year. By 6 months old, a pup might be twice its birth length and 3 or 4 times its birth weight. By 1 year, it's approaching adult size, though still lacking the full body mass and experience of a mature seal. Sexual maturity won't come for another year or 2 at least, but the foundation is being laid, the skills developed, the independence established that will allow this individual to eventually reproduce and contribute to the next generation. Mating itself has never been observed in wild leopard seals, which is remarkable when you consider how much we know about their other behaviors. The seals are simply too dispersed, too underwater, too private in their interactions for researchers to document the actual act of mating. We know it happens in water based on observations of captive seals and based on the logic that these animals are awkward on ice and unlikely to engage in the complex behaviors required for mating in such an awkward medium. We know males vocalize extensively before and during the breeding season, presumably attracting females. We assume there is some courtship behavior, some interaction between male and female before copulation, but what form this takes, how long it lasts, whether females are choosy or simply mate with the first available male, all of this remains largely unknown. Recent observations in Chile documented a 2-hour interaction between a male and female leopard seal that included various vocalizations and behaviors that might represent courtship. The female was mostly hauled out on ice while the male swam nearby and vocalized. This observation hints at complexity in leopard seal social and sexual behavior that we're only beginning to document. Perhaps females assess males based on their vocalizations, their size, their behavior during these extended interactions. Perhaps males compete directly, chasing off rivals, though such competition has rarely been documented. Perhaps the system is more egalitarian, with females mating with multiple males and sperm competition determining paternity. Genetic studies could potentially answer some of these questions by determining how many males father pups in a given population, but such studies are difficult in animals as widely dispersed and difficult to sample as leopard seals. What we do know is that leopard seals are polygynous, meaning males mate with multiple females if given the opportunity, and presumably females may also mate with multiple males, creating a breeding system where neither sex is strictly monogamous. The reproductive success of individual leopard seals varies tremendously. Some females might produce a healthy pup nearly every year for 2 decades, contributing 20 offspring to the next generation. Others might breed less frequently, perhaps every 2 or 3 years, either because of poor body condition or because their pups frequently don't survive. Males also vary in their success, with a small number of large, dominant males probably sharing disproportionate numbers of offspring, while smaller or less fit males might barely reproduce at all. This variation in reproductive success is the raw material for natural selection, the the mechanism by which traits that enhance survival and reproduction become more common in subsequent generations. The oldest known leopard seals have reached ages of 26 to 30 years in the wild, though average lifespan is probably somewhat lower, perhaps 15 to 20 years. This is a decent lifespan for a medium-sized predator, long enough to potentially reproduce many times, short enough that population turnover occurs within decades rather than centuries. As seals age, their reproductive output may decline. Older females breeding less frequently or producing smaller pups, older males unable to compete with younger rivals for access to females. Eventually, age-related decline leads to death from disease, starvation, predation, or simply the accumulated damage of a long life in harsh conditions. And so the cycle continues. Pups are born, grow, mature, breed, and die, generation after generation, each individual a temporary manifestation of a genetic lineage that stretches back millions of years and forward into an unknown future. The cycle is not guaranteed. Environmental changes could disrupt it, disease could decimate populations, human activities could interfere in unpredictable ways. But for now, the cycle persists. Leopard seals continue to breed and raise pups on the pack ice each Antarctic summer, and the species endures. We know what we know about leopard seals through the dedicated work of researchers who have spent years, sometimes decades, studying these elusive animals in some of Earth's most challenging field conditions. These scientists have shared their observations, their data, their insights, and through their work we have begun to piece together the story of the leopard seal's life. Early knowledge came primarily from examination of dead seals, animals that washed up on beaches or were collected during Antarctic expeditions. Scientists would measure the bodies, examine the stomach contents, study the teeth and bones, trying to infer behavior and ecology from anatomy and prey remains. This work established the basic facts: size, diet, distribution, some aspects of reproduction. But it couldn't tell us how leopard seals hunt, how they interact, what their lives are like in the water, where they spend most of their time. Modern research employs a diverse toolkit. Satellite telemetry has revolutionized our understanding of leopard seal movements and diving behavior. Researchers capture seals briefly, attach small electronic tags to their heads using waterproof glue, and then release them. These tags record depth, location, and sometimes water temperature, transmitting data to satellites whenever the seal surfaces. From these data, scientists can map where seals go, how deep they dive, how long they stay submerged, how their movements change with season and ice conditions. One study tracked leopard seals diving to depths exceeding 300 meters, far deeper than was previously thought typical for the species, suggesting that our understanding of their behavior is still incomplete and that individual variation is enormous. Underwater cameras have provided stunning insights into hunting behavior. Camera tags attached to seals record video from the seal's perspective, showing exactly what the seal sees and does while hunting. These videos revealed the intertidal ambush technique used by some seals to hunt fur seal pups, a strategy that was completely unknown before video documentation. They've shown details of how seals process penguin prey, how they filter feed on krill, how they interact with each other in the rare instances when multiple seals are present in the same area. Acoustic research has opened the window into the mysterious world of leopard seal vocalizations. Hydrophones, underwater microphones, can be deployed near known leopard seal habitats to record the sounds they produce. Through analysis of thousands of hours of recordings, scientists have characterized the different call types, measured their acoustic properties, identified individual seals by their unique songs, and documented geographic variation in calling patterns. This work revealed that male leopard seals sing for hours each day during breeding season, that their songs have structure and individual distinctiveness, that calling behavior changes with body size and age. None of this would have been known without patient acoustic monitoring. Genetic analysis has provided insights into population structure, relatedness, and evolution. By comparing DNA from leopard seals collected at different locations, scientists can determine whether populations are genetically distinct or whether seals move freely between regions. They can estimate effective population sizes, identify patterns of relatedness that might indicate family groups or inbreeding, and trace the evolutionary history of the species through comparison with related seal species. One genetic study suggested that leopard seals might have gone through a population bottleneck at some point in their history, a period when numbers dropped dramatically before recovering, leaving a genetic signature that persists to the present. Behavioral studies, both in the field and in captivity, have revealed aspects of leopard seal cognition and individuality. Observers have documented play behavior, problem-solving, individual hunting specializations, and remarkable curiosity. One famous example involves photographer Paul Nicolin, who was approached by a female leopard seal while diving in Antarctic waters. The seal apparently decided Nicolin was incompetent at feeding himself and spent considerable time bringing him dead and then increasingly alive penguins, as if trying to teach him to hunt. While we must be cautious about anthropomorphizing such behavior, it suggests flexibility, social awareness, and perhaps even empathy or teaching behavior, traits we typically associate with more social species. Physiological research has examined the internal adaptations that allow leopard seals to dive, to maintain body temperature in cold water, to fast during breeding season. Studies of muscle tissue have found very high concentrations of myoglobin, the oxygen-binding protein that gives dive-adapted animals their remarkable breath-holding abilities. Analysis of blubber composition has revealed how energy is stored and mobilized during different seasons. Examination of the digestive system has shown adaptations for processing both large prey items and tiny filtered krill. Each of these studies adds a piece to the puzzle, gradually building a more complete picture of how these animals function. Long-term monitoring at specific sites has revealed patterns that would be invisible in short-term studies. At Seal Island in the South Shetland Islands, researchers have returned year after year to document leopard seal presence, behavior, and prey consumption. This work revealed that specific individual seals return to the same hunting grounds year after year, that one or two specialist individuals account for the majority of seal pup predation at the site, and that hunting success and strategies vary between individuals. Such long-term work is difficult and expensive but invaluable for understanding population dynamics and individual life histories. Yet despite all this research, enormous gaps remain in our knowledge. We still don't know the total population size with any confidence. We don't know population trends, whether leopard seals are increasing, decreasing, or stable. We have minimal information about juvenile dispersal and survival rates. We've never documented mating in the wild. We don't fully understand how climate change is affecting the species, or how it might affect them in the future. We don't know the extent of individual variation in behavior and ecology. We barely understand their cognitive abilities, their capacity for learning and memory and problem solving. Each answered question reveals new questions. Each study exposes new areas of ignorance. The researchers who work on leopard seals face considerable challenges. The Antarctic is remote, expensive to access, and dangerous. Weather can change in minutes. Ice can break up without warning. Equipment fails in the cold, and logistics are always complex. Working with the seals themselves carries risks. While attacks on humans are rare, they do happen, and a leopard seal is large enough and powerful enough to injure or kill a person if it chooses. Researchers must maintain constant vigilance, respect the animal's space, and always remember that they are working with wild apex predators that operate according to their own rules, not human expectations. But the researchers persist because the work matters. Leopard seals are important components of the Antarctic ecosystem, and understanding them helps us understand how the ecosystem functions, how it's changing, and what we might do to protect it. They are also intrinsically fascinating, creatures that challenge our assumptions about seals, about predators, about how life can be organized. Each new discovery, each new insight, each new piece of data adds to our collective understanding and appreciation of these remarkable animals. And perhaps there is also something else, something less rational, but no less real. Those who study leopard seals often speak of being drawn to them, of finding them endlessly compelling despite the difficulty of the work. There is beauty in their form, grace in their movement, mystery in their solitary lives. They represent wilderness in its purest sense, animals that live according to their own nature in one of Earth's last truly wild places. In studying them, in trying to understand them, researchers connect with something fundamental, something wild and free and uncompromised by human influence. That connection matters in a world increasingly shaped and controlled by human activity, a reminder that we are not alone, that we share this planet with other intelligences, other lives, other ways of being that are no less valid and valuable than our own. No species exists in isolation, and the leopard seal is embedded in a complex web of ecological relationships that connect it to dozens of other species, from the tiniest krill to the largest whales. Understanding these relationships is essential to understanding the leopard seal's role in the Antarctic ecosystem and the ways changes in one part of the system might ripple outward to affect others. At the most fundamental level, leopard seals are predators, and their most important relationships are with their prey. We've discussed hunting behavior extensively, but it's worth considering the prey's perspective, the ways that selection pressure from leopard seal predation has shaped prey species over evolutionary time. Penguins, for instance, have developed elaborate behavioral strategies to reduce predation risk. They approach the ice edge in groups, waiting for others to enter the water first, a kind of dilution effect where each individual's risk decreases with group size. They enter the water explosively, porpoising across the surface at high speed rather than swimming slowly, making themselves harder targets. Their black and white coloration serves as countershading, making them less visible from below. All of these traits are likely influenced by predation pressure from leopard seals and other predators. Antarctic fur seals and other seal species that fall prey to leopard seals have their own anti-predator adaptations. Mothers give birth in dense colonies where numbers provide some safety, and they remain vigilant when pups are young and vulnerable. Pups learn quickly to be wary of the water's edge, to stay close to adults, to respond immediately to alarm calls. Adult fur seals are fast and agile in the water, capable of outmaneuvering leopard seals if they detect the threat early enough. The relationship is a classic evolutionary arms race, prey evolving better defenses, predators evolving better offensive capabilities, an ongoing dynamic tension that drives change in both participants. Krill, despite being tiny, are equally important to leopard seals and to the Antarctic ecosystem as a whole. Antarctic krill form the foundation of the Southern Ocean food web, converting microscopic phytoplankton into biomass that supports everything from fish to seals to whales. A single krill swarm can contain billions of individuals, and these swarms are distributed throughout the Southern Ocean in patterns that change with season, ocean currents, and ice extent. For leopard seals, krill represent a reliable, abundant food source that requires minimal energy to harvest through filter feeding. But krill populations are themselves dependent on sea ice, which provides habitat for larvae and substrate for the algae they feed on. Changes in ice extent driven by climate change could affect krill populations, which would in turn affect everything that eats krill, including leopard seals. The relationship between leopard seals and orcas is perhaps the most dramatic predator becoming prey in one of nature's reversals of fortune. Orcas are larger, faster, more intelligent, and they hunt in coordinated groups that can overwhelm even the largest prey. A pod of orcas can kill and consume a leopard seal with relative ease, and leopard seals know this. When orcas are in the area, leopard seals change their behavior, hauling out onto ice or shore, becoming more vigilant, altering their movements to avoid areas where orcas have been sighted. The impact of orca predation on leopard seal populations is unknown, but probably significant, at least locally. A pod that specializes in hunting seals could remove many individuals from a population over the course of a year, potentially affecting population dynamics and distribution patterns. Interactions with other predators are less well documented but probably occur. Large sharks might occasionally take leopard seals in warmer waters where vagrant seals occur, though evidence for this is limited. There's one documented case of a male elephant seal killing a leopard seal at Heard Island, though whether this was predation, competition, or aberrant behavior is unclear. For the most part, leopard seals sit near the top of their food web with few natural enemies aside from orcas. The relationship with humans is complex and evolving. Leopard seals are protected under international law and face minimal direct threats from hunting or exploitation. But human activities affect them indirectly in numerous ways. Climate change driven by fossil fuel combustion is altering the Antarctic environment, changing ice patterns, affecting prey distributions, creating unpredictable challenges for animals adapted to specific conditions. Commercial krill fishing, though currently regulated, removes biomass from the ecosystem that might otherwise feed seals, penguins, and whales. Tourism brings increasing numbers of people to Antarctica, with unknown impacts on seal behavior, stress levels, and habitat use. Research activities, while providing valuable information, also involve capturing seals, attaching instruments, potentially disturbing normal behaviors. Direct interactions between leopard seals and humans are rare but sometimes dramatic. Most human-seal encounters involve curious seals approaching divers or boats, investigating these strange objects in their environment. These interactions are usually benign, the seal looking and perhaps approaching but not attacking. Occasionally, seals will mouth diving equipment or bite zodiac pontoons, behaviors that might reflect curiosity or exploratory behavior rather than aggression. But there have also been genuine attacks, instances where seals grabbed humans and attempted to drag them underwater, whether mistaking them for prey or responding to some other stimulus we don't understand. The most tragic case occurred in 2003, when British marine biologist Kirsty Brown was killed by a leopard seal while snorkeling near Rothera Research Station. She was dragged underwater and drowned before colleagues could intervene. This remains the only confirmed human fatality from a leopard seal attack, though several other people have been injured over the years. These incidents remind us that leopard seals are wild predators, powerful and unpredictable, deserving of respect and caution. We enter their environment at our own risk, and while they are generally not aggressive toward humans, they are also not pets or performers existing for our entertainment. From the seal's perspective, humans might represent various things: competitors for resources, sources of disturbance, occasional threats to be avoided, or simply neutral elements of the environment to be investigated or ignored. The diversity of human activities in the Antarctic, from research to tourism to fishing, creates a complex landscape of human impacts that seals must navigate, adding another layer of complexity to their already challenging lives. Within the broader Antarctic ecosystem, leopard seals play multiple roles. As apex predators, they help regulate populations of prey species, potentially preventing any single prey species from becoming too abundant and excluding others. Through their feeding, they transfer energy from lower trophic levels, krill and fish, to higher levels themselves and ultimately orcas when they are preyed upon. Their feces returns nutrients to the water, contributing to nutrient cycles that support phytoplankton growth. When they die, their carcasses provide food for scavengers and decomposers, returning all the energy and nutrients they accumulated during life back to the ecosystem. The concept of a keystone species refers to organisms whose impact on their ecosystem is disproportionate to their abundance. Whether leopard seals qualify as keystone species is debatable. They are not abundant enough to have overwhelming ecosystem-wide impacts, and the Antarctic ecosystem would probably continue to function if leopard seals disappeared, though it would certainly be different. But they do play important roles, particularly in regulating penguin and seal pup populations, and their removal would likely cause cascading changes whose full implications we cannot easily predict. Understanding these ecological relationships is not merely academic. If we want to protect leopard seals and the Antarctic ecosystem more broadly, we need to understand how the pieces fit together, how changes in one part of the system affect others, where the vulnerabilities lie, and where intervention might be most effective. The Antarctic is changing rapidly in some areas, and the species that live there must adapt or face decline. The better we understand the relationships that define the ecosystem, the better equipped we are to anticipate changes and respond thoughtfully, rather than simply watching helplessly as systems unravel. As we drift toward rest, toward sleep, it seems fitting to consider what the future might hold for these solitary spirits of the frozen coast. The Antarctic is changing. This is not speculation or exaggeration, but observable fact documented by decades of scientific measurements. Temperatures are rising, particularly on the Antarctic Peninsula, where leopard seal densities are highest. Sea ice extent is declining in some regions, though increasing in others, creating a complex mosaic of change that is difficult to predict in detail, but unmistakable in its general trajectory. For leopard seals, these changes present both challenges and perhaps opportunities. The challenges are most obvious. Less sea ice means fewer platforms for resting, birthing, and molting. Changes in ice dynamics might affect prey distributions, particularly krill, whose larvae depend on sea ice habitat. Warming waters might alter the distributions of fish and other prey species, forcing seals to travel farther or adjust their hunting strategies. More extreme weather events, stronger storms, faster ice breakup, all could create additional challenges for a species adapted to specific environmental conditions. But leopard seals are also remarkably flexible generalists. They eat diverse prey, They can switch feeding modes between filter feeding and hunting. They have shown ability to move to new areas when conditions change. These characteristics might provide some resilience to environmental change. A leopard seal that can hunt fish when penguins are scarce, or filter krill when seal pups are unavailable, has options that a more specialized predator lacks. A seal that can survive in subantarctic waters, as vagrant individuals demonstrate, might be able to shift its range northward if Antarctic conditions become unsuitable. The key question is whether the pace and magnitude of current environmental change exceeds the leopard seal's adaptive capacity. Evolutionary adaptation requires time, generations for beneficial mutations to arise and spread through populations. Behavioral adaptation can be faster, but still requires that individuals have the phenotypic plasticity, the behavioral flexibility, to adjust to new conditions. If change happens too quickly, if conditions shift beyond the range that any individual can tolerate, then adaptation becomes impossible and populations decline. Current conservation status remains listed as least concern, suggesting that leopard seals are not currently threatened with extinction. But this status is based on the assumption that conditions will remain relatively stable, that the Antarctic will continue to provide suitable habitat, that prey populations will remain adequate. If these assumptions prove wrong, the species status could change quickly. The challenge is that we lack good baseline data on population trends, so detecting decline when it happens might be difficult. By the time we notice problems, the species could already be in trouble. Protection efforts focus primarily on maintaining the Antarctic Treaty System, which provides comprehensive environmental protection for the continent and surrounding waters. Commercial sealing is prohibited, krill fishing is regulated to prevent overexploitation, and tourism activities are managed to minimize disturbance. These protections are valuable and should be maintained, but they cannot address climate change, which is driven by global emissions of greenhouse gases far from Antarctica, by decisions made in distant capitals about energy policy and economic development. Protecting leopard seals ultimately requires addressing these larger issues, reducing emissions, slowing warming, maintaining the ice that defines their habitat. There is also ongoing research, the patient work of scientists who continue to study these animals, to monitor populations, to document behavior and ecology, to provide the information needed for informed conservation decisions. This research is not glamorous. It involves long hours in cold conditions, equipment failures, uncertain funding, and the frustration of trying to study animals that spend most of their time underwater in remote locations. But it is essential. We cannot protect what we don't understand, and our understanding of leopard seals remains incomplete despite decades of work. Public awareness and appreciation matter too. Most people will never see a leopard seal in the wild. The Antarctic is simply too remote, too expensive and difficult to visit for all but a fortunate few. But through documentaries, through photographs, through stories like this one, the wider public can come to know and care about these animals, to understand their importance, their beauty, their vulnerability. That caring translates into support for conservation measures, for Antarctic protection, for addressing climate change. It creates political will to act, to make the difficult choices necessary to preserve what remains of the wild world. Looking further ahead, decades or centuries into the future, what might the Antarctic look like? Will there still be pack ice for leopard seals to rest on? Will krill populations persist in numbers sufficient to support the current food web? Will penguin colonies remain productive enough to make ambush hunting worthwhile? These questions have no certain answers. The future is contingent, depending on human choices, on natural variability, on complex feedbacks we don't fully understand. What seems clear is that change is coming, is already here, and the species that survive will be those that can adapt, that have the flexibility and resilience to cope with conditions different from those that shaped their evolution. For leopard seals, the verdict is not yet in. They are survivors, products of millions of years of evolution in one of Earth's harshest environments. They have weathered ice ages and warm periods, have adapted to changing conditions many times before. But the current pace of change is unprecedented in their species' history, faster than anything they have experienced before. Whether their adaptive capacity will suffice remains to be seen. All we can do is watch, study, try to minimize our impacts, and hope that these remarkable animals persist. that future generations will know the leopard seal not just as a memory or a museum specimen, but as a living presence in the Southern Ocean, still singing beneath the ice, still hunting along the pack ice edges, still embodying the wild spirit of Antarctica in all its savage beauty. As we near the end of our journey tonight, as sleep beckons and consciousness begins to drift like ice flows on a gentle current, it feels important to acknowledge how much remains unknown. For all our research, all our observations, all the data collected and analyzed and published, the leopard seal still keeps many secrets. We don't know, for instance, how they experience their world. What is it like to be a leopard seal? Do they have subjective experiences, sensations, emotions in ways that would be recognizable to us? Do they feel cold, or has evolution tuned their nervous system such that Antarctic water feels neutral, comfortable, home? When a mother leaves her weaned pup, does she feel anything we might recognize as sorrow or regret, or is the hormonal shift that drives her departure also sufficient to erase any emotional attachment? When a male sings for hours beneath the ice, is there something like satisfaction when he finally attracts a mate, or is the whole process entirely mechanical, neurons firing in predetermined patterns, without any accompanying emotional content? These questions are perhaps unanswerable. We cannot know another species' subjective experience directly. We can infer based on behavior, on neurology, on comparison with better studied species. But ultimately, the inner life of a leopard seal remains a mystery, a private world forever inaccessible to outside observation. This should not frustrate us, but humble us, a reminder that we share the world with other minds, other ways of experiencing existence, perspectives we can imagine but never fully inhabit. We don't know the full extent of their cognitive abilities. Are they capable of planning, of holding representations of absent objects or future events in their minds? When they return year after year to the same hunting grounds, are they remembering those places, or simply responding to environmental cues that guide them back? Do they recognize individual conspecifics, remembering past encounters and adjusting behavior accordingly? Can they learn from others, passing information culturally rather than just genetically? Some behaviors suggest sophisticated cognition, the apparently playful interactions with humans, the individual hunting specializations, the complex vocalizations, but we lack experimental data to test these capacities rigorously. We don't know how flexible their behavior really is, how much they can adjust if necessary. The vagrant seals that appear in temperate waters demonstrate some flexibility, proving that survival is possible outside the typical range. But these are usually young animals, and most eventually return south. Could leopard seals permanently colonize subantarctic or even temperate waters if Antarctic ice disappeared? Could they shift to different prey species if current prey became unavailable? Could they modify their social system, perhaps becoming more social if resource distributions changed in ways that favored aggregation? The answers would tell us much about their prospects for surviving environmental change, but we simply don't know. We don't fully understand their population structure. Are there distinct populations that don't interbreed, or do seals move freely around the Antarctic, mixing genes across the entire circumpolar range? Are there local adaptations, populations specially tuned to the conditions in particular regions? How much gene flow occurs between regions? And how might this change if ice patterns alter seal movements? Genetic studies have begun to address these questions, but the picture remains incomplete. We have barely scratched the surface of understanding individual variation. Every leopard seal is unique, its own combination of genetic inheritance and life experience, and this uniqueness expresses itself in behavior, ecology, physiology. Some seals are specialist hunters focused on particular prey. Others are generalists taking whatever is available. Some sing frequently, others rarely. Some are bold, approaching humans and boats. Others are shy, fleeing at the first sign of disturbance. Understanding this variation, its causes and consequences, would tell us much about how evolution operates, how populations adapt, how species persist. But documenting variation requires intensive long-term study of known individuals, work that is difficult and time-consuming but essential. Perhaps most fundamentally, we don't know how this story ends. Will leopard seals still patrol the pack ice in 100 years? In 500? In 10,000? Will they adapt to changing conditions and persist? Or will they decline as their habitat transforms? eventually winking out of existence like so many species before them? The answer depends on factors beyond the seals themselves, on human choices about greenhouse gas emissions, on natural climate variability, on unpredictable events we cannot foresee. The future is unwritten, contingent, filled with possibility and peril in unknown proportions. But perhaps that uncertainty is appropriate. Mystery is not a flaw in our knowledge, but a fundamental feature of reality. The universe does not owe us certainty, does not guarantee that we can know everything about anything. Some things remain mysterious despite our best efforts to understand them. And sometimes that mystery is valuable in itself, a reminder of limits, of humility, of the vastness of what we don't know compared to the small islands of what we do. The leopard seal, in its solitary life beneath the Antarctic ice, embodies this mystery. It lives in a realm we can barely access, operates according to drives and perceptions we can only dimly understand, faces challenges and experiences joys entirely its own. We can study it, can learn facts and patterns, can build models and test hypotheses, but we cannot fully know it, cannot exhaust its mystery, cannot reduce it to data and equations without losing something essential in the translation. And perhaps that is as it should be. Perhaps some things should remain wild, unknowable, forever, other, reminding us that we are not the only subjects in the world, that we share existence with countless other beings whose lives and perspectives are as real and valid as our own, even if forever beyond our complete comprehension. And so, as your breathing slows and deepens, as the warmth of rest begins to settle over you like fresh snow over ice, let us return once more to the leopard seal in its element. Picture it now, a sleek shadow gliding through water so cold it would kill you in minutes, moving with a grace that seems impossible for a creature of its size. The spotted coat catches fragments of light filtering through the ice above, creating shifting patterns of silver and black. The powerful flippers stroke rhythmically, propelling it forward with minimal effort, each movement efficient and purposeful. It swims alone, as it almost always does, content in its solitude, needing nothing from others of its kind, save that brief annual encounter necessary for reproduction. Below and around it stretches an alien world, a cold, deep realm of blue twilight, where ice and water meet and merge, where silence is broken only by the crack and groan of shifting ice, the distant calls of other seals, the rush of water past its streamlined body. Soon it will hunt, perhaps a penguin, caught in explosive ambush at the ice edge, perhaps a slow patrol through krill swarms, mouth agape, filtering tiny crustaceans from the current, perhaps a longer hunt, stalking a fish or a seal pup, using all its speed and skill to capture prey that represents days of calories. Whatever it chooses, whatever opportunity presents itself, the seal will respond with the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of evolution, behaviors honed and refined across countless generations until they approach perfection. Later it will rest, hauling its bulk onto an ice floe, the awkward terrestrial movements giving way to stillness as it settles onto the frozen platform. It will sleep there, perhaps, or simply rest with half-lidded eyes, aware of its surroundings but relaxed at peace. The ice beneath it creaks and shifts, drifting with currents and winds, carrying the seal on journeys it doesn't control and doesn't worry about. When the ice moves, the seal moves with it. When the ice melts or breaks apart, the seal simply slides back into water and finds another flow. It is flexible, adaptive, unconcerned with permanence or stability, content to drift where the ice takes it. And if you could somehow slip into its mind, into its awareness, what would you find? We cannot know, but we can imagine. Perhaps a world of sensation without narrative, cold water and bright ice, and the taste of prey and the pull of tides, all experienced directly without the filter of language or abstract thought. Perhaps something more complex, memories of places and prey and other seals, plans for where to hunt next, awareness of self as a distinct entity separate from environment. Perhaps something utterly alien, modes of thought and perception so different from our own that we couldn't recognize them as thought at all. But whatever that inner world might be, it is real and whole and complete. The leopard seal lives fully in its present, in its cold water home, pursuing its seal life with the same earnestness and validity that you pursue your human life. It is not a symbol or a metaphor, or a character in a story. It is a living being, conscious in its own way, experiencing existence in forms we can barely imagine. important in and to itself, regardless of what we think or feel or know about it. In its solitude, in its power, in its perfect adaptation to an environment that seems impossibly harsh to our tropical adapted species, the leopard seal represents something essential about life on Earth. It reminds us that nature is not one thing but infinite variations, infinite solutions to the problem of survival, infinite ways of being alive. It reminds us that we are not separate from nature but part of it, sharing ancestry with every living thing, participants in the same great story that began billions of years ago and continues into an unknown future. And it reminds us that the wild world still exists, still holds mysteries, still harbors creatures that live according to their own nature rather than ours. In an age when human influence reaches every part of the globe, when wilderness shrinks year by year, when so much seems managed and controlled and bent to human purposes, the leopard seal remains largely untouched, still wild, still free, still itself. This matters more than we often acknowledge. The existence of wild things enriches our world in ways that transcend utility or economics. They give us something to wonder at, to respect, to protect, to know that we are not alone. As you drift now toward sleep, toward dreams, let the leopard seal drift with you. Let its image carry you into rest, like a current carrying ice toward distant seas. Let its solitude teach you peace, its strength teach you resilience, its grace teach you that adaptation is possible even in the harshest conditions. You are warm and safe, far from the cold, but connected nonetheless to that frozen world at the end of the earth, connected to all life through the long chain of evolution that links every living thing. The leopard seal swims on, beneath the ice, through the cold water, hunting and resting and singing its songs, doing what leopard seals have done for millions of years, being exactly what it is with no apology and no explanation. Tomorrow it will wake, will hunt again, will continue its solitary existence in that strange, beautiful, terrible frozen realm. But for now, for this moment, it drifts with you into the quiet, into the dark, into the peace that comes when effort ends and rest begins. Sleep well, knowing that somewhere in the Southern Ocean, beneath Antarctic ice, the leopard seals continue their ancient patterns, solo hunters, spirits of the frozen coast, mysterious and magnificent, and utterly, completely real. Good night.